As the dawn began to softly color the upscale neighborhood of Tampa, Catherine Brown was jogging with light steps through the residential streets. In the distance, she could see her house with its white walls reflecting the morning sun and terracotta roof tiles gleaming orange. The well-tended bougainvillea in her garden stood out in vivid pink, basking in the morning light. Other residents of the quiet Davis Islands neighborhood were also beginning to enjoy their morning jogs and walks. "I'm so glad we chose this house," Catherine thought to herself. Every time she saw this view during her morning jog, it filled her with happiness. She had purchased this house 3 years ago when her dental practice began to flourish, and it was her pride and joy. It was the dream home she'd been envisioning ever since graduating from Harvard School of Dental Medicine. The post-workout shower was as refreshing as a daily ritual that marked the beginning of her day. Catherine carefully applied her makeup and fastened a pearl necklace around her neck. She dressed in a white dress, maintaining the pristine appearance that was part of her philosophy as a dentist. As she headed for the front door, she found her husband Michael on the terrace, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper. Dressed in a Brooks Brothers suit with an expensive watch gleaming on his wrist, he was the very picture of success in his role as a real estate agent. "Good morning, Kathy. Early as usual?" "It's just habit. But more importantly, don't you have a big deal today?" "Yes, I'm going to close it today for sure." Michael flashed a confident smile, but Catherine noticed his eyes darting around slightly. Recently, something seemed off about her husband. Perhaps he was worried about the lease payments on his luxury car or the bills for his new watch. But surely it was just work stress. The treatment room at South Tampa Dental Care was a pristine space equipped with the latest facilities. Her first patients of the day were an elderly couple coming in for their regular checkup. Catherine had earned her patients' trust through her careful explanations and gentle demeanor. Just as she was about to take her lunch break in the afternoon, her sister Jennifer showed up without an appointment. She was wearing a flashy Gucci dress and carrying the latest Louis Vuitton bag. Though these brand items should have been out of reach on a part-time beautician's salary, Catherine decided not to point that out. "Sis, I need to talk to you about something." "Again?" Catherine let out a small sigh as she invited her sister into the examination room. These visits had been becoming more frequent lately. It was always about money. Their relationship had somehow changed from the old days when they used to talk over wine as sisters. This time it's really important. "Just $50,000. I'll pay it back right away." "Jenny, you haven't even paid back the $30,000 from last month. We're family, you should help." Michael's voice came from the examination room door. Her husband had appeared without warning. There seemed to be a hint of desperation in his voice. That evening, Catherine was reviewing materials for a large Florida Dental Association conference. Though it would be her first 3-day business trip in a while, it was a good opportunity to learn about the latest techniques. As she packed her suitcase, an inexplicable sense of unease crossed her mind. But that must just be her imagination. The house and work would be fine in Michael and Jenny's hands. Catherine pushed aside her concerns and checked her luggage one final time. She picked up her Tesla keys and decided to turn in early for tomorrow's trip. On the evening of the conference's second day, Catherine was suddenly struck by an overwhelming sense of unease. Her hands trembled as she checked her smartphone screen during a lecture about the latest implant treatments. An inexplicable anxiety was gripping her heart. The lecture content, which she would normally follow intently, seemed distant as if someone were speaking far away. Even in the air-conditioned room, she felt a sense of suffocation. She could feel her usually straight posture gradually slouching. Though she noticed her colleague in the next seat looking at her with concern, Catherine had more pressing matters on her mind. "I'm sorry, but I need to leave early today as I'm a bit worried about things at home." After politely excusing herself to her colleagues and leaving the venue, a warm evening breeze caressed her cheeks. She got into a taxi waiting in the lobby of the luxury hotel and gave the driver her home address in Davis Islands. The address she had spoken so many times before felt strangely unfamiliar today. "That's a lovely area," the driver commented, but his voice seemed distant to Catherine's ears. Normally, she would have enjoyed chatting with this elderly driver. Even the evening cityscape outside the window looked strangely faded today. As they crossed the bridge over Tampa Bay, she checked her smartphone screen multiple times. No unread messages from Michael, no missed calls from Jenny. Nothing. That very absence amplified her anxiety. The hushed phone call she had heard from Michael's study last night. Jenny's agitated manner. All the strange feelings were starting to connect. Something's wrong. As they approached her home, unfamiliar sights came into view. The gates that were usually open were firmly shut, with an unknown security guard standing by. The man in a white polo shirt was clearly from a new security company, different from the usual Tampa Security Services uniform. Her heart began to race. Her hands trembled as she took out the fare from her wallet after getting out of the taxi in front of the entrance. "Ma'am, are you all right?" the driver asked with concern, but Catherine could only manage a smile. She could feel that smile was strained. As she approached the gate, the security guard stepped forward. His name tag read, Mike Patterson. It was a name she'd never seen before. A new logo for Elite Guard Services shone on his uniform chest. "Good evening. I'm Catherine Brown, the owner of this house." Catherine tried to keep her voice as steady as possible, but the security guard wore an apologetic yet firm expression. There was a hint of sympathy in his eyes. "I'm sorry, but access to this property is not permitted." "What? There must be some mistake. I'm the owner of this house. Here's my driver's license. According to our records, this property is no longer owned by Ms. Brown. We have strict instructions from the new owner." The security guard's words made Catherine's mind go blank. The days she had dreamed of starting a new married life in this house with Michael, whom she had reunited with at a Harvard alumni gathering 3 years ago, flashed through her mind like a film reel. The date engraved on their wedding rings. The roses they had planted together in the garden on moving day. Everything felt like a distant memory now. Just then, her eyes caught the light leaking from inside the house. Through the large windows, she saw two familiar silhouettes. Michael and Jennifer. They were holding bottles of expensive champagne and raising their glasses. A gold bottle of Dom Perignon. The same one she had been planning to buy for her birthday. Michael was wearing his finest suit, and Jennifer was in a flashy red dress. Their expressions showed triumphant, almost smirking smiles. Michael was holding a mobile phone to his ear by the window, engaged in what appeared to be an intense conversation. He would nod vigorously from time to time. Jennifer glanced in Catherine's direction, flashed a malicious smile, then downed her champagne in one go. Her manner showed no concern for the weight of all the money she had borrowed from Catherine. "Perfect. The buyer is satisfied too. Now that stuck-up sister of mine won't be able to look down on us anymore." Fragments of their conversation carried on the wind. Their voices mixed jubilation with malice. Their voices cutting through the evening air sharply as they leaked through the window glass. Catherine quietly began taking photos with her trembling hands, documenting everything as evidence: the security guard, the closed gates, the two figures visible through the windows. The images, time-stamped with date and time, would be the first weapons in the battle to come. Though anger was swirling in her chest, she couldn't let it show. "I understand. Thank you for your work." Catherine bowed politely to the security guard and straightened her back as she returned to the taxi. Though the driver looked at her with confusion, Catherine spoke in a calm voice. The steadiness of her voice surprised even herself. "Please take me to the Vinoy Renaissance Hotel. I'd appreciate it if you could hurry." As the taxi pulled away, the image of her home in the rearview mirror gradually grew smaller. The evening sky was stained red, making the white walls appear as if they were covered in blood. Even the bougainvillea in the garden seemed to sway sadly now. The Brown family nameplate by the entrance glowed poignantly in the sunset. Catherine exhaled deeply and gripped her smartphone tightly. The screen showed the photos she had just taken, staring back at her mercilessly. This was no time for tears. Now was the time to think calmly and take action. Getting carried away by emotions would be playing right into their hands. She recalled the crisis management lectures from her Harvard days. The worst situations demanded the most level-headed decisions. Florida's humid air felt particularly heavy tonight. In the taxi, Catherine began organizing her next moves. In her suite at the Vinoy Renaissance Hotel, Catherine opened her laptop with trembling hands. Though there was a beautiful view of Tampa Bay from the room's large windows, she had no leisure to enjoy its beauty. First, she logged into her online banking. She gasped at the numbers on the screen. Her savings of $2.5 million had been reduced to just $20,000. The transaction history showed unfamiliar large transfers. The recipient was Tampa Luxury Properties LLC. Undoubtedly a fund transfer disguised as a real estate transaction. Catherine took a deep breath and picked up her smartphone. She searched for the name of Joseph Stern, the lawyer her mother had long trusted. The screen showed Stern and Associates, 24-hour emergency response. With trembling fingers, she dialed the number. Stern Law Office. "This is Catherine Brown Anderson, Martha Anderson's daughter." "Ah, Martha's daughter. The dentist, right?" The low, steady voice on the phone gave her a slight sense of relief. After she briefly explained the situation, Joseph sprang into action. "Come to the office right away. I'll arrange a taxi. This is a time-sensitive matter." 15 minutes later, Catherine arrived at the law office in a downtown high-rise. Guided by security, she entered the office on the 70th floor, where Joseph was already spreading out documents on his desk. "Let's check the property registry first." The large monitor displayed her house's registration information. The sale date was today. The sale price was 70% of market value. The buyer was Tampa Luxury Properties LLC. And in the seller's signature field was an unfamiliar version of Catherine's signature. "This is clearly forgery. I'll arrange for a handwriting expert as well." Joseph quickly took notes while issuing one instruction after another. Preparation for reporting to Tampa Police, emergency injunction application documents for the court, requests for fraud investigation to the banks. The room was filled with tension. Time is of the essence. The opponents are clearly professionals. This LLC was established at the beginning of this month, and among the officers is a familiar name. As he scrolled the screen, Michael Brown's name appeared. Further investigation revealed that over the past 6 months, 3 similar property transactions had been conducted in the same pattern. All were deals significantly below market value. So my house was their 4th target? Catherine's voice mixed anger and sadness. Outside, it was already deep night. Lightning flashed, momentarily illuminating the Tampa cityscape. They were well prepared. But they've made a critical mistake. Joseph pulled an old law book from his desk drawer. Under Florida law, real estate sales without spousal consent are invalid. Furthermore, fraudulent transactions are subject to criminal penalties. The photos on your smartphone will be crucial evidence. Just then, Catherine's smartphone rang. The screen showed Michael. Immediately after, a call from Jenny came in. It seems they're beginning to realize the situation. We need to complete all legal procedures within 24 hours. I'll explain the urgency to the court. We can file for a temporary restraining order on the property transaction first thing tomorrow morning. As she nodded at Joseph's words, Catherine was strengthening her resolve. The value of living honestly that her parents had taught her. The life she had built with such determination. Her anger at her husband and sister who had trampled on it all. Everything was becoming a powerful force within her. Once the temporary injunction is granted, we can stop the fund transfers too. We should be able to freeze Tampa Luxury Properties LLC's accounts. The clock showed 2 a.m. Legal documents continued to pile up on the office desk. Catherine silently reviewed them and signed where necessary. Actually, there's one more serious issue. Joseph carefully chose his words as he pulled out new documents. This LLC involves an overseas real estate company. A Bahamas company. We need to stop the funds before they flow overseas. Catherine gripped the coffee cup on the desk tightly. Back at the Vinoy Renaissance Hotel, Catherine sat on the bed, trying to control her trembling hands. While drying her wet hair, she checked her smartphone's missed call history. There were calls from Michael and Jenny, and several from unknown numbers. She believed not answering any of them had been the right decision. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. "Open up. Please." It was Jenny's voice. Behind her, Michael's low voice could be heard too. Catherine quietly stood up and looked through the peephole. In the hallway stood 2 drenched figures. Jenny's flashy red dress had darkened with rain, and Michael's expensive suit was wrinkled. Both had lost the triumphant expressions from hours ago and were now pale-faced and trembling. "Catherine, please listen. We'll explain everything." Michael's voice held a desperation she had never heard before. Catherine took a deep breath and slowly opened the door. "Come in." The 2 rushed into the room. Rainwater dripped onto the luxury carpet. "Towels are over there." Catherine pointed calmly. This calmness surprised even herself. Until a few hours ago, she had thought she would explode with emotion if she saw these 2. Jenny took a towel with trembling hands and collapsed onto the sofa. Michael too had lost his usual dashing demeanor and slumped his shoulders. "First, look at this." Catherine opened her laptop and showed them the property registry and bank transaction records. "Please explain. Why did you forge my signature?" A tense silence fell over the room at her quiet question. "It's all my fault." Jenny suddenly broke down crying. Her flashy makeup smeared, black tears running down her cheeks. "The casino. I lost everything in online gambling. It started small, but trying to win it back, the The debt just kept growing. Catherine closed her eyes at this confession. She had known about her sister's debts, but she hadn't thought they exceeded $100,000. I too. Michael began heavily. I haven't landed a big contract in 2 years. The luxury car loans, credit card payments, it was all just for show. Actually, I have $450,000 in debt. Thunder rumbled, momentarily lighting up the room. In that light, Catherine saw the traces of fatigue etched on her husband's face. His usual confident expression had been a mask. So, Kathy. The plan to sell your house. Not my house. Our house, wasn't it? Michael turned away from Catherine's words. What's the real identity of Tampa Luxury Properties LLC? It's a company that deliberately undervalues properties for transactions, then immediately resells them at market price. The difference goes to accounts in the Bahamas. Michael's explanation matched Joseph's prediction. A classic real estate fraud scheme. There were already 3 victims. And Catherine was to be the 4th target. The penalty from the buyer is $300,000. Michael said in a trembling voice. If we don't pay, there could be criminal charges too. We have no guarantees anymore. You're our only hope. I can't go to prison. Please. Their pleading voices mixed with the sound of rain. Catherine stood up and walked to the window. The rain-hazed Tampa cityscape was barely visible. She remembered the day 3 years ago when she had decided to start a new life in this city. Meeting Michael, having her sister nearby, she had believed she could build an ideal family. That dream was now crumbling before her eyes. Do you understand that something has died in my heart? In a quiet voice, but with inner strength, Catherine turned to face them. Betraying family. Trampling on trust. Do you understand how serious that is? Jenny's sobbing grew stronger. Michael nodded slightly while staring at the floor. This isn't the first time, is it? 3 similar transactions. How many lives have you destroyed? Catherine picked up her smartphone. The emergency police number was already displayed on the screen. Wait. Kathy, she's your precious sister. Don't abandon me. Their desperate voices no longer reached her heart. Never appear before me again. The sound of pressing the report button echoed through the room. At that moment, Michael stood up and tried to run toward the door. However, when he opened it, 2 police officers were already standing there. With a cold metallic sound, handcuffs were fastened. Catherine quietly watched as the 2 were led away by police. As their retreating figures disappeared down the hallway, memories of happier times overlapped, Michael's gentle smile at their wedding, childhood memories of playing with Jenny. Everything now felt like a distant dream. Left alone in the room, Catherine slowly sat down on the bed. Her smartphone rang again. This time it was from her parents. She would have to tell them the whole truth. But that could wait until morning. Right now, she needed this quietness to sort out her feelings. On the table, there was a half-finished glass of mineral water. A tear dropped into it. 1 year later. On a peaceful Sunday morning, Catherine completed the fingerprint authentication on her newly installed security system panel and stepped out into the garden. The dew-covered lawn sparkled in the Florida morning sun. The start of a new day. She woke up at the same time as before and prepared for jogging just as she used to. But everything looked different. The bougainvillea in the garden bloomed more vibrantly, and the white walls emitted a softer glow in the morning sun. The nameplate by the entrance was new. A simple plaque reading, Catherine Anderson, DMD, returning to her maiden name was a symbol of her determination to reclaim her life. While running her jogging course, she reflected on the events of the past year. Michael had received a 5-year prison sentence for real estate fraud. Tampa Luxury Properties LLC's fraudulent transactions were revealed one after another, with total damages exceeding $2 million. Her sister Jenny received a suspended sentence conditional on settlement and participation in a rehabilitation program. She was receiving treatment for gambling addiction and was now reportedly helping counsel others with similar problems at a rehabilitation facility in Jacksonville, away from Tampa. "Good morning, Dr. Catherine." An elderly couple from the neighborhood called out during their morning walk. Catherine returned their warm smiles. After the incident, her neighbors had shown surprising understanding. These Thompsons, in particular, had continued to encourage her with homemade cookies every Sunday. Back home, there was a letter on the kitchen table. It had arrived yesterday. The sender was Jenny Anderson. This was the third letter from her sister. "Dear sister, today I completed the rehabilitation program. The counselor told me your experience can help others. I'm truly grateful that you called the police that day. I had been avoiding facing my own weaknesses. But now, I've learned the importance of living honestly, one day at a time. I still have complicated feelings about Michael. But it seems he too is facing himself in prison. I still don't know how to properly apologize to you. But I want to live looking forward, hoping that someday you'll be able to forgive me. To my beloved sister, Jenny." As she finished reading the letter, the doorbell rang. It was time for her parents' visit. After the incident, they had started having breakfast together every Sunday morning. Her father George brought his usual fresh-baked bagels, and her mother Martha brought homemade blueberry jam. "Catherine, I'll help with the gardening today." "Yes, Mom. I was thinking of planting new roses." The aroma of coffee began to fill the kitchen. Her father spread out the newspaper, and her mother gazed at the garden from the window. There was the family scene she had once dreamed of. Though different in form, it was still a family bound by genuine ties. "I heard from Mr. Stern," her mother casually mentioned. "They're forming a support group for the victims of Tampa Luxury Properties. Joseph had contacted her last week. It was a group where fraud victims could gather to share their experiences and find paths to recovery." "I think I'll go." Catherine's parents quietly nodded at her words. After breakfast, the three began working in the garden. They chose a spot for the new rose seedlings and carefully tilled the soil. Her father silently pulled weeds, while her mother handled the watering. Though simple tasks, each one helped heal her heart. "You know, Catherine." Her mother spoke quietly amidst the scent of earth. "You really were a strong girl." "Was I? But that's because I had you and Dad." Catherine looked up at the sky. White clouds drifted across Tampa's blue sky. The management of South Tampa Dental Care was going well, and plans to hire a new dentist were progressing. In the afternoon, Catherine was reading articles about new treatment techniques in her study. On her desk were preparation materials for next month's Dental Association lecture. Beside them lay a brochure for the support group. "We all have the potential to make mistakes. But what's important is having the courage to acknowledge them and recover." She added this line to her lecture draft. At dusk, Catherine went out to the garden again. She installed pest netting around the newly planted roses. Protecting what needs to be protected, that was an important lesson she had learned over the past year. The security system chimed to signal sunset. The garden lights automatically turned on, spreading a gentle glow. Palm trees swayed in the evening breeze, and somewhere a bird could be heard singing. Tomorrow would start another new week. Patients would be waiting at the clinic. At the support group, she would meet others who shared similar pain. And she needed to write a reply to her sister's letter. "This is the beginning of my new life," Catherine whispered quietly while giving the roses a final watering. Her wounded heart was healing slowly but surely. Like the roses in this garden, it required daily care and love. Before returning inside, Catherine touched the nameplate by the entrance. There, her name was engraved with new determination, quietly gleaming in the evening light.